and 8th graders. We're here with lesson 6.2 on simplifying algebraic expressions. So the first vocab word we have is term. A term is a number, a variable, or the product of both the number and a variable. So for example, you could have 3m, you could have 2xy, you could have negative x squared, you could have a term is also just 4 or m. So that's what a term is. Like terms have exactly the same variable factors. So what we mean by that is what the variable looks like. So here's some examples of like terms. -5 and 8 are like terms. They're both just numbers. 2x and -3x are like terms. Even though their numbers are different, they both have just an x attached to them. 2x squared and -3x squared are like terms because they both have an x squared attached to them. So you can't match like -2x. You couldn't do a -2x squared and a -2x cubed together because they would have different variable factors. Or 2xy and -3xy, they are like terms because they both have an xy. Here's examples of knots. We have a -5x and 8. This one's just a number. That one's got an x. Here, this one has an x. This one has a y. We have an x squared and just an x. We have an x and an xy. So these are not like terms. It is very important that you recognize like terms and not like terms because we can combine like terms, which basically just means that we can add or subtract them so they are one number. We do that all the time with numbers, right? -5 and 8, if I wanted to combine them or simplify them, I could add those two together and it would be +3. I can do the same thing if they both have an x. I would do 2 and -3, which would be -1, and then they would keep their variable, so they would just be -1x or -x. I could even write that as. But over here, if I have a 2x squared and a -3x, I cannot combine them because they do not have like terms. So I can only combine them if they have the exact same ending. We can call it their last name. So this family here, they have a last name of xy. They can be combined with any other family that has an xy last name. Let's look at our first example. So we have 5m plus 9m plus m. Whenever there's just a variable, what number should we assume is in front of that? Good, a 1. Which means that if this said -m, it would be like -1m. So now, because these all have the same last name or the same variable factor of m, and just m, we can go ahead and we can add them. So we have 5 plus 9, which is 14, and 14 plus 1 is 15. And so our answer would be 15m. Now, what about if instead of that, I had 5m plus 9m squared plus 1m? Now in this case, I can't combine my m squared with my m's, but I could still simplify this because I have two that are just m. So I would do 5m plus 1m, and that would be 6m plus, and I would leave this one 9m squared. All right, I would like you to go ahead and try example B on your own. So use this example to help you. If they have the same last name, you can go ahead and combine them. And remember that if there's a subtraction, it's just like a negative sign. So this subtraction will be attached to the 5x when you are doing that math. I look forward to seeing how you do with that. Now I'm going to go to a different type of example. So here we have John buys 5 loaves of bread and 8 cans of tuna. Tanya buys a loaf of bread and 2 cans of tuna. What is the total cost written as an equation? Okay, so they want us to put this information into an equation that you could solve if you knew the cost of bread and tuna. What we're going to do first is pick variables and assign them what they mean. So B is what I'm going to use for a loaf of bread. And usually we pick variables, like we pick one that kind of makes sense. So B with bread, that makes sense. T is going to represent the cost of a can of tuna. Now let's reread our thing and figure out how to do it. So John buys 5 loaves of bread and 8 cans of tuna. So our 8 cans of tuna we're going to show as 8T. Tanya buys a loaf of bread, and I can just do B, I don't have to put a 1 in front of it, and 2 cans of tuna. What is the total cost? So now we have this equation that we started to write, and now we just need to simplify it. And remember, I can add things that have like terms. So 5B and B have like terms. That's going to be 6B plus 8 and 2, 10T. So our finalized expression would be written as 6B plus 10T. Here's another cool thing we can do. So you can simplify with distributive property. So here it says simplify 8C minus 3 times C plus 5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by writing out, I have my 8C. So now remember, if we were to change 6C minus 3 to an addition problem, it would be 6C plus -3. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to realize that subtraction is really adding a negative, and this sign is attached to the 3. So this is a -3. So we have 8C, and then we have -3 times C, which is -3C. Then we're going to take this middle sign, and then we're going to do -3 times 5. So -3 times 5 is -15. Now I'm going to look to see if I have any like terms. So here I have an 8C and a -3C. So I'm going to add those together. So 8 plus -3. Now I'm adding two numbers with different signs. So different, find the difference. So 8 minus 3 is 5. Give it the sign of the bigger number. So I have 5C plus -15, which I will write as -15. And that is my simplified one with distributive. Okay? So go ahead and try this example by yourself. You're going to follow the same steps that I just did there. So you'll do 11, you'll keep your -2 together, and you will multiply it through and then simplify. I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow in class, so go ahead and get to work.